I have some of my fondest COVID memories of talking to you in your home with your family, you know, living their lives, as we talked about ballots and Pennsylvania, and I wonder if you reflect very much on how this Republican Party, which watched Trump lose 60 of 61 challenges to his defeat in 2020. How extraordinary it is, or is it extraordinary to you that they're more enraptured by him now than even on Election Day and the days that followed 2020?
Yeah, Nicolle, I mean, just examine the record. First, let's start in court, at least in Pennsylvania, when Donald Trump sued us to try and first stop people from voting and then have their votes count. He sued us, and his allies sued us 43 times. He went 0-43. We went 43-0. We had a free and fair, safe and secure election. Then look at the ballot box. While Donald Trump squeaked out a victory, of course, in 2016 in Pennsylvania by just over 40,000 votes, in every subsequent election, either Donald Trump or his hand-picked candidate lost. They lost for governor. They lost for United States Senate. Hell, they even lost for school board in some cases. This is a guy who has lost every step of the way. Yet these people keep following. I mean, I had to laugh today when some of those senators were like standing up there applauding him. The same people that were saying after January 6th that he didn't have a place there, that he had stoked violence against them. Now they're all lining up and they're just showing themselves to be profoundly and pathetically weak people who don't swear allegiance to a flag, but rather just to Donald Trump, who are people who have lost really just the sort of core vision of, you know, Ronald Reagan's Republican Party, the Republican Party that you worked for in a really noble and honorable way. That's all out the window. Now they just look straight to that one man, a man who has delivered them loss after loss after loss here in Pennsylvania and across the country. And why they continue to follow them in many ways is a reflection on just the weak people that they are more than anything else.
I mean, it is the perfect encapsulation of the Trump Republican Party. I'm a student of Sarah Longwell's efforts to create permission structures for Republican voters who saw all this and want to walk away. And I wonder what you see. I mean, you're very sort of hands-on in Pennsylvania. How do you assess the politics in Pennsylvania today?
Well, look, I can tell you here in Pennsylvania, we're actually focused on three letters, GSD, get stuff done every single day. And, you know, I'm the only governor in the entire country with a divided legislature, a Senate led by Republicans, a House led by Democrats. Yet we've been able to make historic investments in education and public safety, economic development. We've protected our freedoms. And by the way, we've also cut taxes 3 times. We're actually showing people that you can govern together. You can bring Republicans and Democrats together. And here in Pennsylvania, I think people appreciate the fact that we put points on the board for them every day, and we focus on common sense things. What I think a lot of folks here in the Commonwealth are concerned about is the chaos that Donald Trump would bring back if he's given the keys to the White House again. I mean, think about it. Donald Trump has pledged to do away with Obamacare. That means 1.2 million Pennsylvanians would no longer have access to health care. He's pledged to roll back all the great infrastructure work that President Biden did. I mean, we've got communities in Pennsylvania that are literally getting their water lines replaced so they no longer have to drink water with lead in it. Think about the chaos that would be if they were no longer going to be able to trust their water source if Donald Trump were to be president. I mean, Donald Trump, you know, even though he tries to talk out of both sides of his mouth on it, this is a guy who wants to ban abortion nationwide. We're a state that has protected women's freedoms. And there's only so much I can do if at the federal level they're able to push that through. This guy is all about bringing more chaos. And I think what we've shown in Pennsylvania is folks here don't want chaos. They want you to put points on the board for them every day. They want you to get stuff done. They want you to bring Republicans and Democrats together. That's the way we're governing here, and I think that's the approach President Biden has tried to take, and that's the direction we need to continue to move in.
Your campaign was a model. I mean, we called it a model on TV of making democracy something people understood. It meant and I remember your speech, I think it was a Sunday night for Election Day, with Obama, President Obama was there as well, about what it is and what it isn't. And I know some Democrats sort of wring their hands about, oh, people are worried about kitchen table issues. Democracy is a kitchen table issue, because if you can't decide whether or not, what to do with your own body, whether or not to have an abortion, if a pregnancy is not viable or not what your family has planned, that is not life in a democracy. What is your sort of advice for how to have the conversation about democracy and how to make it a kitchen table issue for voters?
Yeah. Well, look, I don't know if the president needs my advice on this, but I'll just tell you what we've done in Pennsylvania and what has clearly worked at the ballot box and what Pennsylvanians have reacted really well to during my time in office. And that is making sure that everyone here has the freedom to chart their own course and the opportunity to succeed, that we expand real freedom and protect it here in the Commonwealth. And yes, that does mean women get to make decisions over their own body, that you get to marry who you love. But it also means that you don't have arbitrary requirements stopping you from getting a job. That's why I did away with the college degree requirement for 92% of our state government jobs. It means that all children of God in whatever zip code that they're from have a good quality education. That's real freedom. It's real freedom to be able to walk down the street and not fear gun violence is going to cut your life short. It's real freedom to know that even in towns that had a strong and rich legacy in the steel mills and the coal mines that have shuttered, that there's still going to be opportunity for you there in those towns. You don't have to go somewhere else to find that opportunity. That's real freedom, and that is what we're focused on delivering every day in Pennsylvania. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the American people want, Democrats and Republicans alike. They want a commander-in-chief. They want a leader that is going to help work to perfect our union, to lift people up, to have a positive vision for this nation, and every single day focus on expanding freedom. And freedom comes, as I said, in many forms. Your fundamental right to govern your own body, and the economic freedom you get by having a job or a great quality education. That's what we're doing here in Pennsylvania, and that is what I hope to see more of all across America.
The moment requires extreme candor with the voters. One, because voters deserve it. Two, because it's what they respond to. And three, because the stakes are so high in November. You got real on Monday night. You accused Trump of shit-talking America. Say more.
Look, I just think we want a leader who's going to recognize all of the wonderful things that exist here in America, who doesn't have a hard time saying this is the greatest country on earth, who can acknowledge the fact that more people went to work this morning in America than at any other time in our nation's history, and that's a good thing, that we're producing more energy than ever before, and that's a good thing, that we're outcompeting China for the first time, and that's a good thing. And it doesn't mean that we're a country without challenges. It doesn't mean that we don't have to keep working to perfect our union and working to bring more equity into our system and working to make sure our classrooms are better funded and working to make sure that there are more people with access to economic opportunity in their communities, particularly in rural America. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges, but come on. We want a commander-in-chief. We want a leader who loves this country and who's willing to stand up for it and fight for it and loves all American people, no matter what they look like, where they come from, who they love, who they pray to. And I think that's what we get in Joe Biden. And that is decidedly the opposite of what Donald Trump continues to put forth. He insulted one of America's greatest cities today. I mean, come on. That is not fitting of a leader, Democrat or Republican. I think the American people, certainly the people of Pennsylvania that I interact with every day, Republican and Democratic alike, they love this country. So why the hell shouldn't we have someone running for president who loves this country just as much as we do? In Joe Biden, we have that. In Donald Trump, we just have a guy who keeps whining every single day and putting down this nation. And frankly, the other night, I'm just sick and tired of it. And that's why I said what I said, and I stand by it.
I love what you said. I mean, I worry that we sand off the edges. We bleep out, we say get stuff done instead of get shit done. I mean, that's what people want. And your resonance as a governor speaks for itself. Your success in the election, your success as a governor, you're getting things done for your constituents, but also as a messenger for the president. How much do you plan to be out there delivering this very message over the next 5 months?
Look, I'll be out there as much as the president and his team want me to be. I got a primary responsibility politically, and that is to make sure he wins here in Pennsylvania. I'm going to continue to do everything in my political power to do that, to tell the story of what the president has accomplished, to contrast that with the chaos that Donald Trump would bring back to this nation. And listen, I mean, Nicolle, this isn't theoretical. This guy was in charge for 4 years. And we were worse on job creation. We were worse in our economy. We were worse when it came to our standing in the world. And it doesn't mean that there aren't challenges today that we continue to have to work on, particularly some of the economic challenges that we're facing here in Pennsylvania and all over the country. But we've got to make sure that we remind people of that clear contrast of how bad it was under Donald Trump and how much progress we've made under Joe Biden. Not perfect, but the progress that we've made, and we've got to keep moving in that direction. And I'll continue to speak out about that here in Pennsylvania and anywhere the president needs me to be across this country.